Welcome back to the channel, USA Coins 69, coin collectors, history lovers, and hidden treasure hunters. If you're someone who gets a little thrill every time you sort through your spare change or come across a dusty old coin collection, then you're going to love today's video. We're diving deep into the story of one of America's most iconic coins, the Lincoln wheat penny. But not just any year. Today, we're focusing on a very specific and potentially valuable piece, the 1950 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. Now, when most people hear penny, they immediately think of something small, insignificant, and worth next to nothing. After all, it's the lowest denomination of U.S. currency. But in the world of numismatics, the art and science of collecting coins, certain pennies are anything but worthless. Some are so rare, so pristine, and so mysterious that they're considered miniature masterpieces worth thousands of dollars. And yes, sometimes tens of thousands. Let's travel back to 1950, a time when the world was recovering from World War II, the Cold War was just beginning, and the United States was rapidly changing. This was a year when things seemed both uncertain and full of possibility. Amid all of this, the U.S. Mint continued quietly producing the everyday coins that Americans used in shops, diners, and gas stations. One of those coins was the humble 1-cent piece, the Lincoln wheat penny. The wheat penny itself is a classic piece of American design. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. Prior to this, American coins typically featured allegorical figures like Lady Liberty. But the Lincoln cent broke tradition, putting one of America's most beloved presidents front and center. The obverse side of the penny features a detailed right-facing portrait of Lincoln, created by designer Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, can sometimes be found on rare versions of this coin, depending on the year. On the reverse side, you'll find the distinctive wheat ears on either side, symbolizing growth and prosperity. This design remained in use until 1959, when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial. Now let's zero in on 1950. The Lincoln wheat penny struck that year came from three different U.S. mints: Philadelphia, with no mint mark, Denver, with a D, and San Francisco, with an S. These mint marks can be found just beneath the date on the coin's obverse side. At first glance, all three types may look very similar, but the tiny letter under the date can make all the difference when it comes to rarity and value. But why is the 1950 penny so special? For starters, it came at a time when mintage numbers were starting to dip for certain mint locations. In particular, the 1950 S and 1950 D wheat pennies were produced in lower numbers compared to previous years. As a result, collectors began paying more attention to pennies from this year, especially those in high grades or with unusual features. Now, let's talk about what really makes a coin from this year go from interesting to incredibly valuable. The key factors are condition, rarity, and errors. Let's start with condition. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers representing better preservation. A 1950 penny found in circulation might be scratched, worn down, or discolored. But if you happen to come across one in near-perfect, mint-state condition, say, an MS-65 or higher, that coin becomes far more desirable to collectors. Even more valuable are coins that were never intended for everyday use, so-called proof coins. These are specially struck with extra care and detail and were usually made in limited numbers. While regular proof pennies were not officially struck in 1950, some uncirculated examples with incredible luster and sharp detail exist, and they can fetch high prices when certified by professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC. Next, let's discuss the errors. Sometimes, during the minting process, things don't go quite as planned, and that's exactly what collectors look for. A few examples of errors include double die obverse, DDO, where elements like the date or lettering appear slightly duplicated. Off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted away from the center. Repunched mint marks, where the mint mark has been stamped more than once in slightly different positions. Die cracks or cuds, where parts of the coin show raised lines or blobs due to breaks in the die. Now imagine having a 1950 wheat penny that has one of these rare errors and is in mint condition. That's the kind of coin that doesn't just end up in a collection, it ends up in an auction house. What makes this even more exciting is the fact that many of these coins are still out there, buried in old jars, stashed in dresser drawers, sealed away in family coin albums. Because the Lincoln cent has remained in circulation for so long, many people simply overlook it. But not you. Now you know exactly what to look for. So what should you do if you think you have a 1950 Lincoln wheat penny worth investigating? First, check for the mint mark under the date. Next, examine the coin's condition, look for signs of wear or, hopefully, the absence of it. Then, get out a magnifying glass and inspect for any errors or irregularities. If anything seems off or unique, don't assume it's worthless. It could be the exact feature that turns it into a rare variety, and if you really think you found something special, consider sending it to a professional grading service. They'll evaluate your coin, assign it a grade, and even authenticate its error or variety. Once it's officially certified, you'll know exactly what kind of treasure you're holding, and you'll be in a position to sell it, display it, or even hold onto it as a long-term investment. Now, we've talked about history. We've explored design. We've examined mint marks and rare errors. And we've uncovered how to identify a true gem hiding among ordinary change. So what's the ultimate value for a rare, high-grade, error-laden 1950 Lincoln wheat penny? Let me reveal it now. One such coin, bearing the right mint mark, preserved in pristine mint state, and featuring a striking error, has been valued at an astonishing $76,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. A single penny, 1 cent in face value, potentially worth more than a luxury car, a college degree, or even a small home in some parts of the country. This is the power of coin collecting. It's not just about metal and minting, it's about stories, history, rarity, and discovery. Today, we're uncovering the surprising story behind one of America's most iconic and potentially valuable coins, the 1953 Lincoln wheat penny with mint mark. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, it's just a penny, right? A single cent, the smallest unit of American currency. Not exactly something you'd expect to pay attention to, let alone believe could be worth a fortune. But sometimes, the smallest coins carry the biggest secrets, and today, we're about to reveal one of them. Let's set the stage. The year was 1953. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. The Korean War was coming to an end. The Cold War was heating up. Rock and roll was just around the corner, and televisions were becoming more common in American households. It was a time of transition, optimism, and progress. But amid all this change, one thing remained consistent: the Lincoln wheat penny, faithfully circulating through the hands of millions of Americans. The Lincoln cent had already been around for over 40 years by this point. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the coin was designed by Victor David Brenner and quickly became one of the most recognized pieces of U.S. currency. On the front, you've got the unmistakable profile of President Lincoln. On the back, 2 wheat ears standing tall, with the words, 1 cent, between them, a simple yet powerful symbol of American resilience and prosperity. But what makes the 1953 penny so special? Why are collectors around the world searching for it, studying it, and even bidding thousands of dollars for the right one? Let's break it down. First, let's talk about mint marks. In 1953, the Lincoln wheat penny was produced at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. You can identify the mint by the small letter found just under the date on the front of the coin. If there's no letter at all, it came from Philadelphia. A small d means it came from the Denver Mint. And if you see an S, that penny was minted in San Francisco. Each mint had different production quantities, and that plays a big role in the rarity and value of these coins today. The Denver and San Francisco mints, in particular, had lower mintages than Philadelphia in some years, and that can make those coins harder to find in top condition. But beyond that, there's another major factor that can turn a regular 1953 penny into a treasure: condition. Coin condition is everything in the world of numismatics. Most pennies from 1953 were circulated heavily. They bought gum, paid sales tax, were dropped on sidewalks and forgotten in couch cushions. Decades of handling, oxidation, and wear have left the vast majority of these coins scratched, dull, or worn down. But once in a while, a pristine example appears, one that somehow avoided the rigors of time and stayed sharp, shiny, and nearly flawless. Coins like these are graded on a special scale called the Sheldon scale, which ranges from 1 to 70. A coin graded 70 is absolutely perfect, no flaws, no wear, just mint-fresh detail. If you happen to have a 1953 penny that's graded MS 65 or higher, you've already got something special on your hands. But if it also has a rare error or comes from a scarcer mint, that's when things get really exciting. Now let's talk about mint errors, those little quirks and mistakes made during the production process that can turn an ordinary coin into a collector's dream. Imagine finding a penny where the date appears doubled, or the mint mark is slightly off-center. Some 1953 pennies are known to have doubled die obverse, where parts of the design appear twice in slightly different positions. Others have repunched mint marks, where the mint mark was punched in more than once during the minting process. You might also find off-center strikes, die cracks, or coins struck on the wrong metal planchet. These mistakes are rare, and when they happen on a coin that's already over 70 years old, they can make that coin extremely valuable. So where are these rare 1953 wheat pennies hiding? The answer might surprise you: they're everywhere. In old piggy banks, antique shops, garage sales, bank rolls, and even tucked away in your grandparents' coin collections. These coins were minted in the millions, but most people never check them closely. That's where your advantage lies. All it takes is a little time, a good magnifying glass, and a sharp eye. Flip through those penny rolls. Examine every detail. Look closely at the mint mark, the date, and the overall condition. If you find a 1953 penny that seems to be in amazing shape or has something visually unusual about it, don't let it go. Set it aside, and consider having it professionally graded by a service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations will evaluate your coin, assign it an official grade, and confirm if you've got a rare error or variety. And once you've got that certification in hand, the value of your coin could skyrocket. But even beyond the monetary value, there's something incredibly rewarding about holding a small piece of history in your hand. This is a coin that was made when your grandparents were young, when the world was a very different place. It tells a story of everyday life in 1950s America, and now, it has the potential to tell a whole new story as a rare collectible. So, how much could one of these rare 1953 wheat pennies actually be worth? That's what you've been waiting for, right? Well, imagine this: you've got a 1953 penny with a mint mark, maybe a D or an S. It's in mint condition. Maybe even a gem-grade mint state. And just maybe, it has a rare doubling error or a repunched mint mark. You send it in for grading, and it comes back with a top-tier score. In a case just like that, one of these pennies was sold for a stunning $70,000. Yes, you heard that right. $70,000 for a single penny. Today's video is going to take you on an incredible journey through time, war, and wealth, all through a coin you may have passed by without a second thought. That's right, we're diving deep into the story of the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark, a coin born in the shadow of World War II, steeped in mystery, and possibly sitting in someone's drawer right now, worth more than a luxury car. Yes, this isn't just a penny. This is a symbol of an era. A tiny, copper-colored time capsule that carries more value than its small size suggests, both in history and, for a very lucky few, in cold, hard cash. Let's set the stage. The year is 1944. The world is at war. American troops are fighting across Europe and the Pacific. The D-Day invasion has just taken place. President Franklin D. Roosevelt is leading the nation through one of the most pivotal moments in world history. At home, the U.S. Mint is working overtime, literally, producing coins to keep up with the booming wartime economy. And it was during this unforgettable chapter in world history that one of the most fascinating coins ever made was struck, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. Now, to understand why this penny matters, we need to go back just a little bit further, to 1943. That year, in an effort to conserve copper for ammunition and military equipment, the U.S. Mint made a dramatic change. Instead of using the usual bronze alloy, they struck pennies on zinc-coated steel planchets. The result? The famous 1943 steel penny. These coins looked silver instead of copper, and while they were only used for 1 year, they created a ripple effect that made the 1944 penny even more interesting, because in 1944, the mint reversed course and returned to copper. But not just any copper, the material came from recycled ammunition shells collected during the war. That's right, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny was literally minted from the remnants of war. Just think about that for a moment. Every time you hold one of these coins, you're holding a small piece of World War II history, transformed into everyday currency. Now, the wheat penny itself had already been in circulation since 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. On the obverse, there's Lincoln's detailed portrait, stoic, dignified, and instantly recognizable. On the reverse, 2 simple stalks of wheat arch gracefully around the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. This design stayed in place until 1958, and for many collectors, the wheat ears remain one of the most beloved coin designs in U.S. history. But what separates a 1944 wheat penny from the others? Why does this specific year draw so much attention? Let's talk numbers. The mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies in 1944. In fact, it's one of the highest mintage years for the Lincoln cent series. Coins were struck in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, with a D, and San Francisco, with an S. So on the surface, the 1944 penny may seem common. But as always in coin collecting, the real value lies in the details, and sometimes, in the mistakes. First and foremost, let's talk about errors and varieties. While most 1944 pennies were struck on copper planchets, a few were mistakenly minted using leftover steel blanks from 1943. These 1944 steel cents are incredibly rare, and only a handful are known to exist. If you ever come across a 1944 penny that looks silver in color and doesn't stick to a magnet, it's worth having it tested, because you might have found one of the holy grails of coin collecting. But that's not the only valuable version of the 1944 penny. Many were struck with unusual die errors, such as double die obverse, where the date or the word Liberty appears doubled, repunched mint marks, where the D or S was stamped more than once. Off-center strikes, where the design is visibly shifted on the coin. BE errors, a small vertical die break that appears between the letters B and E in Liberty, making it look like it says Liberty. Even a small error can turn an ordinary penny into a collector's item, and the 1944 wheat penny is one of the most error-prone coins of the entire series. Now let's shift our focus to coin condition. Most 1944 pennies have seen years, if not decades, of circulation. That means they've been scratched, worn, dropped, rubbed, and forgotten. But once in a while, a coin surfaces that is in near perfect condition. These are called mint state coins, and they're graded on a 70-point scale by professional services like PCGS or NGC. A 1944 penny in MS 60 is nice. In MS 65, it's excellent. But when you start getting into the MS 67 and higher range, the coin becomes a true gem, and that's when collectors start opening their wallets. Imagine this, a 1944 D wheat penny, perfectly preserved, struck with precision, bearing a rare repunched mint mark, and graded at an incredibly high mint state level. That's not just a coin. That's a masterpiece. So, where do you find these coins? That's the exciting part, you can find them anywhere. In old jars. Tucked in sock drawers. Hidden in a grandparent's attic. At flea markets. In inherited coin collections. Even in rolls of pennies you get from the bank. These coins aren't just sitting in museums, they're out in the world, waiting to be discovered by someone like you who knows what to look for. What should you do if you find one? First, don't clean it. Never clean a coin, it can reduce the value drastically. Instead, store it safely in a coin flip or holder. Examine the coin under good lighting and possibly a magnifier. Look for any errors. Check the mint mark. Assess its condition. And if it looks unusual or pristine, send it to be graded by a professional service. Now, we've covered the history. We've talked about the mints, the materials, the war, the design, the errors, and the condition. But you're still wondering, what's the real number? What kind of money are we talking about for one of these seemingly ordinary coins? Well, here's the moment you've been waiting for. A 1944 Lincoln wheat penny, with the right mint mark, the right error, and preserved in near-perfect mint state condition, was once valued and sold for a staggering $82,000. Today, we're going to explore a coin that might be hiding in your pocket, your coin jar, or even your grandmother's old candy tin, a coin that could quietly be worth a small fortune. That coin is the 1946 Lincoln wheat penny with mint mark, a piece of American currency that most people overlook, but true collectors know could be something far more valuable than its tiny size suggests. Before we dive into what makes this coin so special, and why collectors are willing to spend thousands on the right 1. Let's take a moment to step back in time. It's 1946. World War II has just ended. The world is adjusting to a fragile peace. The United States is booming economically, but socially, it's a time of great change. Soldiers are coming home. The baby boom is beginning. The average American family is finding new hope in the post-war world. But at the U.S. Mint, business as usual continues, with one big difference. After 3 years of wartime metal conservation, 1946 was the first full peacetime year for coin production since the start of World War II. Copper had been reserved for ammunition and military hardware during the war. In fact, in 1943, the Lincoln cent was famously struck in zinc-coated steel to save copper for the war effort. But by 1946, the U.S. Mint had fully returned to using copper-based alloy for the penny. So, when you look at a 1946 wheat penny, you're holding more than a coin, you're holding a post-war artifact. It represents transition, resilience, and the everyday life of Americans in a rapidly changing world. Let's talk about the design. The Lincoln wheat penny, designed by Victor David Brenner, had already been in use for nearly 40 years by 1946. On the front, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. On the back, 2 stylized wheat stalks flanking the bold 1 cent lettering. Simple, patriotic, powerful, and instantly recognizable, but in the world of coin collecting, beauty and age alone don't guarantee value. It's the little details that separate the common coins from the jaw-dropping rarities. First, the mint marks. In 1946, Lincoln pennies were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an S. These mint marks can be found just below the date on the coin's obverse side. Although millions of each were produced, the condition and potential errors tied to specific mints can turn a basic penny into a collector's holy grail. Now let's get into the real magic: rarity, condition, and minting errors, starting with condition. Most 1946 pennies were spent, passed from hand to hand, spent at diners, dropped in store registers, or rubbed smooth over decades in circulation. But every once in a while, a coin surfaces that somehow avoided all of that. One that was stored carefully, left untouched, or even forgotten. These are the mint state coins, graded MS 60 or higher on the Sheldon scale, coins in MS 65 and above. Those are what collectors dream about. With their brilliant luster, sharp details, and near-perfect surfaces, they fetch far more than just a few cents. But a coin that also contains a rare error? That's when things get serious. Now let's talk errors and varieties, because this is where the 1946 wheat penny gets really exciting. Over the years, collectors have uncovered a number of rare and valuable mistakes on this coin, including double die obverse, DDO. This is where the date or letters like Liberty and In God We Trust appear to be double due to a misalignment during the minting process. Repunched mint marks, RPMs. You might find a D or S mint mark that looks like it was stamped more than once in slightly different positions. These subtle errors are extremely collectible. Off-center strikes, coins where the design is shifted off the edge due to a misfeed in the coin press, die cracks and cuds, where the coin shows raised lines or blobs from cracks in the stamping die. These might seem like minor mistakes, but to a collector, they're everything. They tell the story of how coins were made, how technology wasn't perfect, and how accidents at the mint can become rare treasures today. Even without an error, the right combination of mint mark and pristine condition can turn a 1946 penny into a sought-after collectible. Especially from the Denver and San Francisco mints, which produced fewer coins than Philadelphia, but don't think you need to go to a museum or auction house to find one of these. The most thrilling part? These coins are still out there, tucked away in your grandfather's old coin jar. Mixed in with a forgotten roll of pennies at a garage sale. Even in a batch of change from the bank. It happens more often than you might think. Someone finds an old coin, gets it graded, and discovers it's worth far more than they imagined. So, what do you do if you think you found one? Here's the plan: examine the coin carefully. Look at the date and check for a mint mark. Look for any doubling, striking anomalies, or unusual features. Never clean it. Cleaning a coin, no matter how dirty, can destroy its value. Store it properly. Use a coin flip, capsule, or soft holder to protect it. Consider professional grading. Companies like PCGS or NGC can give your coin an official grade and authenticate any rare errors. Having that certification can massively boost the value and credibility of your coin in the marketplace. By now, you're probably wondering, what's the best case scenario? How valuable could a 1946 Lincoln wheat penny possibly be? Well, let's put it like this: if you find a 1946 wheat penny with the right mint mark, in mint state condition, and carrying a rare error like a double die or repunched mint mark, then you're not just holding a coin. You're holding a rare collectible. A piece of American history. A small disc of copper that could change your life. And yes, such a coin, authenticated, rare, and in pristine condition, once sold for an astonishing $72,000. Yes, $72,000. For a penny. Incredible, right? And that's why we love coins on this channel, because it's not about the face value. It's about the history, the hunt, and the hidden value that so many people miss. Today's journey takes us back more than 8 decades, to a time when the world was on the edge of global war, and the United States Mint was quietly producing a coin that, today, could be worth an unbelievable amount of money if you're lucky enough to find the right one. That coin is none other than the 1941 Lincoln wheat penny with a mint mark. Sounds simple, right? But behind that coppery face hides a story of wartime history, minting quirks, and hidden value that most people would never expect from something they once dropped into a gumball machine or left under a couch cushion. So, grab your magnifying glass, and maybe even your old coin jar, because this one might just inspire you to take a second look at that humble penny hiding in plain sight. Let's rewind the clock and set the scene. It's 1941. Franklin D. Roosevelt is president. World War II has erupted across Europe and Asia. The US hasn't entered the war yet, but tensions are rising fast. Pearl Harbor is only months away. America is on the brink of joining the most devastating conflict in human history. But while the world holds its breath, life on the home front goes on. People are working, shopping, commuting, and of course, using coins every single day, and among those coins in 1941, millions of Americans are handling the Lincoln wheat penny. By that point, the coin had already been in production for over 30 years. First minted in 1909, the Lincoln cent was the first American coin to feature the face of a real historical figure, Abraham Lincoln, replacing the classic allegorical images that dominated earlier coin designs. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin quickly became a staple of American life. The obverse features a bold, detailed portrait of Lincoln, facing right, with the words, "In God We Trust," overhead, "Liberty," to the left, and the year to the right. The reverse features the classic twin wheat ears, surrounding 1 cent and United States of America. Simple, elegant, and deeply symbolic of American strength and humility. Now let's talk about mint marks. The 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny was produced at 3 different U.S. mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; San Francisco, marked with an S. These mint marks appear just below the date on the obverse side. And while the Philadelphia Mint produced the largest number, the coins from Denver and San Francisco are where things start getting interesting, especially when you throw condition and error types into the mix. Now you might be wondering, if so many of these were minted, over 1 billion across all 3 mints, how could any of them be rare or valuable? The answer lies in the details. Let's begin with condition. Over the decades, these coins were passed through countless hands. They bought bread, paid bus fares, and jingled in lunch boxes during war-era school days. Most of them are now worn smooth, scratched up, or corroded from years of use. But once in a blue moon, a coin escapes that fate. Maybe it was put into a coin collection early. Maybe it was lost and never circulated. Maybe it sat untouched in a bank roll or envelope for 80 years. When a 1941 Lincoln penny survives in mint state condition, especially one graded MS 65 or higher on the Sheldon scale, it instantly becomes desirable to collectors. But that's just the beginning. Let's talk about errors and varieties, the fascinating accidents of the minting process that collectors absolutely crave. Some of the most valuable 1941 Lincoln Wheat pennies feature double die obverse, DDO. This is when the image on the die was stamped twice at slightly different angles. The result? The date, lettering, or parts of Lincoln's profile appear doubled. These are visually striking and extremely rare. Repunched mint marks, RPM. Mint marks were applied by hand in 1941, which means sometimes they were punched more than once, slightly off alignment. A D over D or S over S can drastically increase value. Off-center strikes, where the design is visibly misaligned and not centered on the coin; broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the collar, leading to an expanded shape; clipped planchets, coins that were struck on blanks that weren't fully round or had part of the metal missing. Each of these errors adds uniqueness to the coin, making it one of a kind. And when these varieties occur on a coin in brilliant, untouched condition, that's when collectors are willing to pay serious money. Now let's add another layer to the story: wartime metal content. While the 1941 penny was still made primarily of bronze, composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, metal conservation was already becoming an issue. By 1943, the mint would switch to steel cents, but in 1941, the standard bronze planchets were still being used. That said, collectors always keep an eye out for transitional errors, where a coin may have been mistakenly struck on a planchet intended for a different year or metal type. There have even been rumors of rare off-metal 1941 cents struck on foreign blanks or using leftover materials from earlier minting batches. Now, let's address the biggest question of all: where can you find one of these gems? Here's the exciting part: you don't have to be a professional coin dealer to find one. These pennies have been discovered in pocket change, old jars of coins, inherited collections, flea markets, antique stores, and even inside books or old lunchboxes from the 1940s. Many people have no idea what they're holding when they find an old wheat penny. But now you do. So, if you happen to come across a 1941 wheat penny with a D or S mint mark, or if you spot unusual doubling, a repunched mint mark, or see that the coin is in exceptionally crisp condition, stop what you're doing. Don't spend it. Don't toss it aside, handle it carefully, store it properly, and if it looks really special, consider having it graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. These services will verify the authenticity, assign a professional grade, and potentially help unlock the true value of your find. And that brings us to the moment you've all been waiting for: how much can a rare 1941 Lincoln Wheat penny be worth? Well, if you happen to find one with the right mint mark, in near-perfect condition, and featuring a rare error or variety, then you're not just looking at a neat old penny. You're looking at a collector's dream. In fact, one such coin, certified in mint state with a dramatic error, was once valued and sold for an astonishing $89,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny. Just 1 cent worth more than many brand new luxury cars. All because of history, condition, rarity, and a little luck. So go ahead, dig through that old coin jar. Check that drawer full of spare change. You never know when history, hidden value, and opportunity will intersect in something as small and extraordinary as a 1941 Lincoln wheat penny. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss another episode. We've got more incredible coin stories coming your way, from rare cents to silver dollars and everything in between. Until next time, keep collecting, keep searching, and remember, sometimes, the biggest treasures are hiding in the smallest places.